Dear learners, welcome to the course MS016 Strategies and Models for Sustainability. It is one of the course of our postgraduate diploma in sustainability science. And in this session, I'm going to talk on natural resource management micro level, a brief understanding on the principle of natural resource management at micro level. I'm sure you must be aware about the concept of natural resource management, the technicality behind that. When we talk about natural resource management, it relates to the human impact on natural environment, the productivity of land and water body, and its impact on ecosystem services and qualities such as water allocation, soil loss, biodiversity, but also indirectly with the health issues as related to pollution, fire, or different natural phenomena like dust storm, etc. Again, it also refers to natural resource management refers to maintaining quality of life and ethical values related to sustainable management. It influences ecosystem, landscapes, and because of off-site impacts and spatial interaction also in urban areas. With the human population and resource use per capita is on the rise, good management is becoming increasingly important at all scales. It may be at local level, regional level, national level, and moreover at global level. Here, today, we have to look into the micro level, which is very much important if you want to have an effective natural resource management. So let us have a look into the natural resource management at micro level. What are its components? When we talk about natural resource management its components, we know that first we have seen natural resource management, natural resources biodiversity, water and community and cultural diversity. So today in this session, I will focus on these three important components. One is biodiversity, second one is water, the third one is cultural diversity. How they are interlinked as a component of natural resource management at micro level. When we talk about biodiversity, we know that biodiversity is variety and variability of living organisms. When we study about the concept of biodiversity in course 2, we have learned that biodiversity is one of the basic components of ecosystem diversity. And this ecosystem diversity gives different ecosystem services in different forms. And it can be looked at different way, direct benefit and indirect benefit. So to maintain or to improve, for example, in case of that intact ecosystem, and to stop from degradation in one side and other side, to improve the ecosystem services of a degraded ecosystem, we need to manage. So for effective implementation of those natural resources, managing at micro level is very important. So when we talk about the biodiversity, we in India, if you look into how to manage biodiversity and how to participate biodiversity management, the local, how to participate local, that is very much important. So, for effective participation or effective implementation of biodiversity conservation or biodiversity management, first and foremost, step is involving the local. In fact, in India, we have People's Biodiversity Register under India's Biological Diversity Act 2002 that exercise and provides a platform for the community members to initiate positive steps to manage their biodiversity resources better. At the same time, the Biological Diversity Act 2002 provides a forum in every local body in the form of Biodiversity Management Committee. This Biodiversity Act also aims to promote conservation, sustainable use, and equitable sharing of benefits of India's biodiversity resources, and calls for establishment of a National Biodiversity Authority. We already have State Biodiversity Authority, Biodiversity Management Committee at all at the different level like panchayat, municipalities, and city corporation. In this way, through this act, to conserve biodiversity, we have People's Biodiversity Register. If you look into that Biodiversity Act, it stipulates that every local body shall constitute a Biodiversity Management Committee within its area for the purpose of promoting conservation, sustainable use, and documentation of biological diversity, including preservation of habitats, conservation of land ratios, pork varieties and cultivars, domesticated stocks and breeds of animals and microorganisms, and that chronicling of knowledge related to biological diversity. So, if we have to effectively implement this People's Biodiversity Register under this Act, a People's Biodiversity Register should not be a simple list of plant and animal species and of varieties of cultivated crops and domesticated animals. It should not even such a list along with a record of folk knowledge of medical and other uses of living organisms. It should serve as a component of the societal knowledge base of conservation, sustainable use, equitable sharing of benefits of biodiversity. So the point is that it should not be a simple list of plant and animal species. It should have a record of folk knowledge of medicine and medicinal value and other uses of living organisms of that area. So the People's Biodiversity Register means PBR must be concerned with documentation of many facets of people-ecosystem interaction as well. So, when we have an objective to invite participation of local in accessing or in maintaining the resources, for accessing the various resources of that location, then the first-hand information needs to be collected on the important resources available at that location, their uses, and also give an indication of how much people are aware of the resources, and it should enable the documentation of traditional practices associated with it. So some of the sample format which we can use for the collection of those information are: these are the sample format, name of data collector who use it, that gives increased data collector to work very essentially. Then that of data collection, sources of information, local name of the cultivated plant, whatever species over there, then whether there is local variety or not, that can be mentioned, and then other varieties are available, and then how much time means life cycle of that particular species, then good kind of environment in terms of soil, then cultivation, and other practices which is related to that species and its life cycles in terms of the susceptibility to pests, diseases, low moisture, and waterlogging, and annual yield of, and it's important of great values of some value missions, great missions, and what are the parts uses. These are the information we can collect for maintaining the people's biodiversity registers, means maintaining or collecting the information about the present status of biodiversity that exists there, and even we can collect those species which used to exist there and which is not locally available in that region in the present time. So in this way, when you talk about natural resource management in terms of biodiversity, we can follow such kind of that practices for the effective implementation or effective participation in implementation of local people and implementation of that conservation program in that area. The second component is water management system. When you talk about natural resource management system in a local area, of course, one is biodiversity, which I talk about. Next is water management system. Now, when we talk about the water management system, to govern, we know that to govern the use of water resources, it's a very challenging task. If we look into the increasing water scarcity in the water conflicts across the world at different scale. Although devolving responsibility of water conservation and management of water has found a prominent place in the Indian national water policy priorities, it is the use of traditional technical knowledge and local institutions in acquiring, controlling and managing water resources that play a crucial role in the success of new policy intervention. At the same time, if we look into structural water management bodies, it is a multi-layer system with user stakeholder representing that user stakeholders, they represent at different levels. So the government should retain the right to nominate sometimes non-voting members from its department who can presumably provide capacity building support and supervision. Means in the sense that the government nominees should be there at local level in that water management system. The major function of water management bodies should be prepare a plan for the maintenance of, when you talk about water management, it is about irrigation system and carry out regular maintenance work with the funds provided by government bodies. Then crop planning and matching to local soil and agroclimatic conditions with a major focus on crop diversification that also meet your biological conservation. That is very interlinked. So it also regulates the use of water in operated areas and prepare water demand collection of water rates. That database has to be maintained and resolve disputes between member and water users. Right. So implementation of participatory water management through community participation and collective action in water management development, in that also the same way what we have that in People's Biodiversity Register, we can develop document about a water set of that area to keep aware about the status and potential of the particular water set in that local area. Like, these are some of the information where we can gather for the specific purpose by the community. Like, these are name of water set area, what type of water set, tank, what type of water sources, then whether there is any local name other than what standard nomenclature in the documents or not. Then existing management authority, because sometimes we have traditional way of water management like Jal Panchayat, Pani Panchayat and so on. So there may be variety of formal as well as informal management authorities in that area. So we need to identify that whether that particular area is controlled by or water set, it may be water set, pond or any water body, who is controlling it? Either government, private, local community. That needs to be, information needs to be compiled. Then existing management system or practices, whether still they are using traditional and that institutional mechanism there or traditional practices there for management system. Then gainer use groups, like certain, when we talk about gainer user group, certain users group, local or external, they may gain from the existing management system, and on the other hand some other may not. For example, builders may gain from encroachment on the tanks. So this kind of details information needs to be described in detail when collecting the information. Then when you talk about the stakeholders, when you talk about such kind of resources, some may be gaining, some others they are not effectively or getting those benefit in full, like leisure user group, like local or external, they may stand to lose from the existing management system. For example, farmers may stand to lose from encroachment on tanks. When there is construct the tank, water tanks, then they may lose their land. So this kind of information may be provided. Other management pattern prevalent in the past, for example, management system, as I told you about traditional system with there or not, or whether a new system existed or not. Then the other information like then digital management system, what kind of new system from the perspective of different users group, like the vision of different user group have their own vision, and they want desirable management system. Maybe, for example, that relates to right of access to land, water or biological resources. From that point of view, roles of different government and agencies like private industry, landowners or community institutions, they may take that ownership of that, and many more, like local versus outsiders actors, technology employed, and access to capital or market, and so on. So this is some the point we have to gather. So it would be worthwhile to increase the community members to give full scope of their imagination and come up with a variety of innovative solution in the process of gathering this information. At last, a suggested component for a management plan that can be implemented under the present circumstances as a consequences of that particular Gram Sabha or particular local body is very much important, right? So when we talk about local level nature resource management, we have to talk about the biodiversity management is one important component. Another is that water as a major component. So another point we have to look into a country like India is, we have to look into that biodiversity perspective, agrodiversity, but biodiversity than seeds than grains, because that gives us food security. So there one initiative by MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, and that example is community zinc seed grain banks. So we know that when the plant genetic resources, the use of plant genetic resources has contributed to the nurturing of agricultural biodiversity for millennia, right? Yet, local indigenous community have not been profited for more recent commercialization of these resources and are often not facilitated by the product of modern plant breeding. For these communities in banks could not only provide backup storage to increase food security, but also from a measure of putting the concept of farmers' right into practice. However, the success of communities in banks strongly depend on a national legal framework. So, when you talk about the conservation of all this biodiversity, the domain of in situ conservation has to be understood. So, when in the domain of in situ conservation, on-farm conservation by rural and tribal women and men has remained largely unrecognized and unrewarded. So these communities continue to possess traditional knowledge to cultivate, use, and preserve a large number of land races and all varieties of plants, animal breeds. So we need to increase, we need to reward and recognize their hard work and their role. So we need to increase all those things, we need to establish such kind of initiative like Community Zin Seed Grain Bank continuum to ensure both food security and biodiversity conservation in the areas of acute water scarcity. Water tank bank have also been established to promote community water harvesting. So these are some of the possible approaches. So to begin with that, we can start that participated well appraisal, village meeting, exhibition, other extensive interaction to develop this continuum of community seed bank, Zin bank, community Zin seed grain bank. Okay, because participation is most important. When we talk about this specific continuum, this is called banks with difference. When you talk about Zin bank, here in that land races with distinct characteristics are stored for long term, both by ensuring their continued cultivation in the farm and through cold storage in the community Zin bank. When we have the seeds, in the Zin bank, the seeds of these land races are assessed for their genetic material, and the economic benefit arising from such use will go to the individual community conserve the land races. When we talk about a seed bank, it's a facility for storage of excess seeds of farmers, of different farmers, which can be accessed during times of seed shortage. The seed bank ensures that seeds are available for cultivation, right? The third component is grain bank. It's a storage facility of excess seeds of farmers which can be lent and returned with interest to families in need. The grain bank ensures food security of the region and also reduce the danger of seeds being consumed in times of stress. So these three banks have been integrated to support each other. Loss of viability of seeds from the seed bank can be met by Zin bank samples. Right? The grain bank supplies excess grain, seed and Zin material in times of need. So this bank could be managed by the police committees and the panchayat with support from other technical institutions of expertise. So in this, the participant will be assigned. Now, for example, we can assign for developing such kind of Zin seed grain banks. Then we can involve locality and they can take an important part in this developing such kind of continuum. Then third, as I mentioned you that when you talk about natural resource management and for effective implementation in the local participation, linking cultural diversity with biodiversity is important. If you look back in 2000, what United Nations Millennium Declaration said that it called for respect for nature as one of the fundamental values of humanity. The declaration mentioned that. The declaration said that prudence must be shown in the management of all living species and natural resources in accordance with the precepts of sustainable development. Only in this way can the immeasurable riches provided to us by nature be preserved and passed on to our descendants. The current unsustainable pattern of production and consumption must be changed in the interest of our future welfare and that of our descendants. So this declaration, Millennium Declaration, called for a new ethics of conservation in environment and stewardship. So when we respect for biological diversity, it also implies respect for human diversity. The interaction between biodiversity, human languages and culture is the base to observe at local level. And here, when we talk about this, landscapes are not only shaped and modified by human activity, but also symbolically brought into the sphere of human communication by words, stories, songs, proverbs, and legends that encode and carry human relationship within bond. Not only our biological species, but also we will see many ethnic groups around the world are now faced with extinction. The causes and consequences of this loss lie in the increasingly unsustainable exploitation of the Earth's natural resources and the growing marginalization and dispossession of indigenous and minority groups. When these minority groups, indigenous peoples, when they are extinct, as you know, their local traditional indigenous knowledge and their custodians will not be available. So a sustainable society can only be achieved through the participation and empowerment of all people. So we have to bring all these community, including indigenous people, under the domain of protection of intellectual property right when we implement that natural resource management at macro level. So, for example, when you talk about that culture and biodiversity linkages, we in the same time what we have done in people biodiversity register, in the same way we can collect information that is associated, those species associated with place of that cultural values that can be done through the participation of local people. So in that way we will be able to develop the link of culture and biodiversity, like what kind of trees they worship, about the sacred group, and so on. Again, another is when we talk about rewards and recognition, because we know that those are indigenous peoples, those tribal peoples, that men, women, they will not appreciated what they have done for environmental conservation. To give those space, India enacted the Protection of Plant Variety and Farmer Rights, PPVFR Act in 2001, in accordance with the commitment under the trade-related aspect to intellectual property rights of the World Trade Organization. So the government of India notified the rules on this act in 2003. The Plant Protection of Plant Variety and Farmers' Rights Authority, after referred as PPVR, was constituted on 11 November 2005, and along with bringing forth certain provision of the act. So if we look into a quick look into the PPVFR Act, two of the important objectives of PPVFR Act are: one is to provide an effective system protection of plant varieties and the right of farmers and plant breeders, and the second one is to recognize and protect the rights of the farmers in respect of their contribution made at any time in conserving, improving, and making available plant genetic resources for development of new plant varieties. In this act, in a separate chapter of farmer right, allows farmers to register their varieties as extant varieties, to be eligible for recognition and reward from the National Gene Fund, to enjoy the traditional right on the seed for saving, sowing, resowing, exchanging, sharing, and selling, to be eligible for compensation in lieu of an agronomic performance inferior to what is claimed by the breeder of a variety, etc. So apart from the farmer right provided in the Act, it also mandates the authority to establish and maintain a national register of plant varieties of all crops which are brought under this Act, and a documentation induction catalog of farmer varieties. Such documentation, induction, cataloging are to be carried out in a manner which would assist the authority in identifying novelty of a given new plant and the new plant variety in any future registration application. This will necessitate documentation of farmer varieties for DUS, means DUS means distinctness, uniformity, and stability characteristic, along with data on their geographic origin and the farmers or farming community responsible for the origin and the conservation of such varieties. According to Rule 24 of that Act, application for registration of all extant varieties of a given crop species have to be filed within 3 years from the date of notification on the opening of registration of varieties of such species. As of now, Indian Council of Agriculture Research has taken initiative on thus due as characterizing almost all Asia bred and released varieties of species. So it is very important that all farmers' varieties known for important specific traits are characterized and such characterization data brought into the National Register of Plant Varieties. It is also possible that such characterization of farmers' varieties may facilitate the registration of a few more important varieties which are widely grown in certain pockets and having larger seed demand. So for the purpose of ensuring varietal registration and also enabling the communities to get reward and recognition for the contribution for conservation of genetic resources, it would be useful to gather for information from the community. So that will help to empower the community in enabling them to understand intricacies of the process in getting recognized for recognition and reward system. So these are some of the information which we can gather from that area, which is given in this table, right? So information required for inventory, characterization, documentation of farmers. These are some of the information which we need to be gathered. So today's in this session, what we learn is that when we talk about the effective natural resource management at local level, you have to first and foremost think to understand is the component. And if you look that component, three important components is there. One is biodiversity. When we talk about biodiversity, as you know, we have learned about details in the course number 2. Biodiversity as a component. How effective participation of local help in effective implementation of natural resource management, biodiversity conservation, and so on. And water management system also very important. So when we talk about the conservation of all this biodiversity, water management system, and other component of ecosystem, cultural value is very important. So we have to appreciate the role of different communities, especially indigenous community, then rural, remote tribal community, their roles in conserving, maintaining all those biodiversity. Thank you very much.